So I just recently did 145-mile race slash test ride in my new gravel setup on my bike. Three main changes I made mechanically to my bike setup for this race. The first was the new cyclocross gearing. I have a triple on it. I used to have a 50, 39, 30. So I replaced the two outside chain rings with a 46, 38. So that allowed me, see my video on shifting a 32 cog on the rear with the Shimano 105 SS derailleur. That's the setup I have now. The video I did earlier, you can see it's a chain wrap issue. You can't cross chain big with this setup with a 50-tooth chain ring on the front without risking ripping off your derailleur. So if you're just doing like little hill runs or club rides with your bud, that's probably okay, because you can keep a clear head. But try going up a hill after 8.5 hours of riding in 100-degree weather and think to yourself, am I going to cross ring big here? Sometimes you kind of lose track, and then you wind up 80 miles from anywhere with a ripped off derailleur. If you do that on a little club ride or a little hill run, maybe you're 15 miles from home, you can always call somebody to come get you. You can't always do that on one of these endurance rides. So you got to be a little safer. You got to be a little smarter. So yeah, the 46 on the front allows me to do that. Also, for this ride, I was rocking the aero bars. I think that made a big difference. More on that later. And this is the first ride, not obvious, but this is the first ride I rode with sealant in the tires. So let's talk a little bit more about each of those. Cyclocross gearing with the 32 cog on the back really worked out well for me. On this ride, I had about 5,000, well, I had about a mile of vertical climbing to do on this ride. There's kind of 3 big hills on the ride. The signature hill, they routed us over 3 times, and then there's a hill down by the Red River, and then another hill called the 423 hill. So all of those are, at grades approaching high teens to 20%, at least it's for some portion of the climb. Not super big hills like, thousands of feet of climbing or anything like that, but tough hills for gravel. And before the ride, I considered taking the 30 off on the front because I thought, I don't really need that. 38, 32 is enough, but I'm glad I left it on. At mile 110, when I hit the last big hill, it sure was nice to slam it down into the 30 on the front and the 32 on the back, and have a little more spin to go up the hill. So I think that's a good choice, and I may leave it that way. I doubt I need this kind of gearing for the Dirty Kansas, the Dirty Kansas ride. Based on my practice there, I ran that ride with the 30-28 being my lowest gear, and that was adequate. And that's just a little bit higher or tougher gear ratio than what I plan on running, which is going to be a 1x36 by 34 biggest cog on the back. So I think I'll be okay there. Top end speed may be a concern. You hear a lot of people say, well, I don't want to give up the 50 on the front for cyclocross gearing because what if we get on pavement? I'm going to get dropped. If you spin out, so my top speed on this ride was about 41 miles an hour. If you spin out at 110 RPM on a 46-11 combo, you're going to be going well in excess of 30 miles an hour. That's more than adequate for a typical gravel endurance ride. So I wouldn't worry too much about spinning out. Ditch the extra weight and go with cyclocross gearing. That's my advice. It's worked out well for me, and I plan on sticking with it on this bike. Aero bars, I already knew aero bars made a big difference. It's nice to have these carbon ones that they weigh next to nothing, you know, and they still let you get into an arrow position. And like I said before, it's a great place to hang all your navigation equipment and your light. Sometimes these arrow bars, you know, on a gravel ride, if it's technical short ride where there's going to be a lot of people, basically you don't get to use them at all, right? Because you don't want to be riding on a gravel ride in a pack on your arrow bars. That's not a good idea. And you don't want to be doing obviously a steep descent or a technical descent on your arrow bars. In most gravel races, you know, you'll find two places where you're going to want to use them. One is just when you're on a long stretch of flat, non-technical gravel road. There's a lot of that. It's nice to be on your arrow bars, save some watts. And the other is when you find yourself heading into a pretty stiff headwind. And that's what we had on this ride. A north wind, and I don't know, we rode for probably 17 miles heading up to the Red River into a north wind. And then I don't know if it's because of the geographic eccentricities of the Red River or what, but when I rode down into the Red River Valley, I guess you want to call it, heading from east to west, the wind direction was right in our face, and it was pretty stiff. Probably 17, 18 mile an hour wind. So it was nice to be on the arrow bars for that. And you know, these gadgets can kind of bridge the gap between somebody like me, who's kind of a mediocre rider, and some other riders who may be a little bit better. I know on the climb up out of the Red River Valley, there were 3 riders that I caught up to and passed on that climb who were pushing their bike, you know, and they put in time on me leading up to the Red River, and then once we got into that wind, I chipped away at it and caught them on the climb and passed them there. So at least 2 of those riders were way better cyclists than me. So that's probably just a case of, you know, gadgets kind of bridging that gap, or you know, maybe they were just screwing around, who knows. So this is the first race too where I rode with sealant in the tires, so not tubeless, just 1.5 ounces of sealant in each of the tubes. I got some new tubes with a removable valve stem, and just fed a little bit of Stan's sealant in each one. So, you know, I'm going to call that good, but that could be neither good nor bad. The gravel was really nice. There was, first of all, the gravel in this area I don't think would be bad under any conditions. Although when we were headed up to the Red River, there was maybe a 7-mile stretch of gravel that, you know, had the big fist to head size chunks embedded in the road. So that was kind of like pave. But other than that, about 2 days out there had been some rain, and then the sun came out and it got packed down, so it was really prime gravel conditions. So it could just be that I would never have had any flats in any event, but the last 2 big gravel rides I've taken, I've got pinch flats. So I thought, you know, I can't just continue to let that happen. I need to do something. You'd be surprised how much, you know, so the complaint is, look, just if you're not going no tube, you know, if you're not going tubeless, you're just adding rotational mass to your wheels. That's a good theory, but it's kind of an uninformed theory. I don't know if there's any data that really supports it. Well, rotational mass does make you slightly slower in a criterion setting, but in a gravel setting, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Even if you're doing a lot of climbing, it's just way overblown. So putting 1.5 ounces on each wheels is de minimis. Of course, that could be because I'm riding a big old heavy bike. I don't know, but you know, probably that's just neutral. I didn't get a flat. I probably wouldn't have gotten a flat anyhow, but that is a change that I made in my setup this time.